What is up, guys? This is Coach Jake from Valhalla Barbell Club, and I'm here today to break down a very common issue that I'm seeing happen off the blocks. This is something that a lot of us have done, and this is also a very good correction video for the hitch. So this is our athlete, Rosanne. Rosanne allowed me to use this video. She was very graceful in allowing me to break down her technique in this way, so I thank you, Rosanne, for that. But we're going to break down what she's doing when she transitions off the blocks and how it's inefficient. And I would like to even compare it to an international lifter that I really like to use when I'm doing these sorts of things, just to give you an idea of what I think it should look like and what you're actually doing. So in this video, Rosanne is doing a snatch from the blocks at knee height. Here, her goal is to her goal is to pull the bar off the blocks and gain speed in this little amount of window we have going up the leg. This is why blocks can be so valuable in training. We are shortening the pull. We are allowing an athlete to work from a different position where they have to generate a little more speed. Blocks are a great tool to teach top and finish, and they're very good for working on specific parts of the pull. Anyway, Rosanne, from this position, she sets her lats, and the issue we've had over the last few weeks is she's now setting her lats in her pull, but for some reason she's still hitching a little bit, and I couldn't really see this until she started to break down we actually took a video of this, and we started to break down her technique. But from here, in this position, we're going to talk about this section right here. Now, this transition of the bar from the knee up to the hip cannot be an upright row with the lats, and I'll explain why in a second. In this position, she sets the lats, but even here, she tightens them further to get that bar up to make contact at the hip. Now, her arms are straight, and most of the pull is correct, except I want you guys to check out her torso angle here, and I'll remind you of that in a second. From here, she's upright rowing that bar into the hip, and finishing, she actually still makes this lift, which is pretty good. She's an athlete. She did a really good job of making the lift, but let's watch it full speed and show you why it is a bad thing. Okay, we're going to go back and watch it one more time. Okay, notice how during her pull, she has to stop at the hip. This is a result of being out of position. By her upright rowing the bar into this position at her hip, right here, she is forced to have to use her shoulders violently at the top to reposition her hips back under the bar in order for her to get her full leg on the finish. Now, these shoulders are used to transition that bar from the knee up to the hip to help us get into a correct position with the hips, but she's too late with it at this point. So basically, she's raking the bar into the hip and then staying over the bar far too long. Okay, let's go talk about Lydia, and I'll explain why they're different. We'll compare both of them at the end of this video. Here we have the world-famous Lydia Valentin. She's an 81-kilo lifter for the country of Spain, and in my opinion, one of the best technical lifters in the world currently. Now, she's changed a few things in her jerk that I'm not, entirely a fan of, but it works for her. She's very competitive. She actually just won the world category at the 81-kilo weight class. So for her, I use her for a lot of technical things. I like to talk about her during when I'm trying to explain to an athlete how something should look. She's a very good second reference if they don't understand what I'm trying to show them in person. Hopefully they do, but if they don't, she's a better breakdown of it as well. So from here, I'm going to compare basically the same portion of the pull that Rosanne was in, and I'm going to go through this full speed, and we'll talk about what Lydia does differently, and we'll compare both the videos side by side at the end. Now, it's a hook grip video, so you get some pretty awesome music, but this was from a snatch at the Arnold a while ago. We're going to break down this pull inch by inch. All right, so here, same position Rosanne is in, bars at the knee. From this position, though, we'll notice that her lats are tight. She does not rake the bar up into the hip. She actually uses her shoulders, see them starting to move back that direction. She's starting to use her shoulders to initiate that transition of the hips back onto the barbell so we can drive effectively on the bar with the full leg. Here, she is even with the bar or even slightly behind it. From this angle, it's pretty hard to tell, but here she looks like she's in that position. And then take a look at her legs. Now her legs are fully loaded. She's allowed to use the entirety of her leg to try and drive on that barbell. Okay? Now, I'm going to compare this with Rosanne's video, and I'll explain how the two are different and then what you can do to fix this. Okay, now that we have both of the athletes side by side, I wanted to take a second to kind of recover what we've already talked about and just discuss everything I've tried to tell you over the past few minutes in this video. Also, by putting them side by side, it's going to give us a better idea or visual representation of what I'm actually trying to tell you guys. So we'll move Rosanne up a little bit first, and we'll move Lydia first, and we'll compare different points during this portion of the poll just to see how they differ. Now, these two lifters are significantly different. Rosanne is a Masters Pan Am champion. Lydia is a world champion. They both succeeded on the world stage. Rosanne is built significantly different than Lydia. Lydia is a much taller and a much larger athlete. Rosanne is a little bit shorter. Her levers are different, so the way she pulls will probably be different than Lydia. But this base portion of the technique and the transition from the knee up to the hip remains the same for most, if not all, athletes. Now, from here, I'm going to move Rosanne up a little bit. We're going to get her to, let's say, 2 inches above the knee. And we'll move Lydia up a little bit as well. Okay. Now, you're going to start to see some things that we mentioned earlier where Rosanne will end up rowing that bar up into her hip using her lats, and Lydia will actually move her torso back to get the bar up to the hip, which is a more efficient way to do it, and it's the way that I'm trying to get most of you to do it. So from here, let's move Rosanne up to mid-thigh, and we're going to move Lydia up to mid-thigh. Now, Lydia is still about even with the bar, or even, I would say, slightly in front of it there, just a little bit. Maybe it's the angle I'm looking at, but from here, let's compare torso angles and take a look at Rosanne's. Well, let's redo that. I don't like that. Okay, so here are Lydia's legs, and there we go. There's Rosanne's torso, and there are her legs. Now, Rosanne is a little more closed off in this position. Lydia is starting to open up, and as we move and we start getting Rosanne up to the hip. Now Rosanne has made contact at the hip here. Lydia has now made contact at the hip in this position. Notice how Rosanne is still in front of the bar or even slightly even with the bar, where Lydia is even with or even a little bit behind the bar. Now, this is the point I'm trying to make. With Rosanne being in this position and her upright rowing that bar using her lats into her hip, she is forced to stop and change the direction of her torso and her momentum to simply get her body behind, even with or slightly behind the bar, so she can actually finish and use her legs in the finish. Lydia is already at this position in her pull. So Lydia is free to finish, use the whole power of her legs to help her get underneath that barbell. Rosanne, at this point, has to stop, if we go full speed, to get herself underneath that bar. Rosanne makes the lift. I'm not going to take the lift away from her. This is the heaviest she got on this day. But this is just something that can be improved and something that can make her a more efficient lifter. Take a second and look at your pull. If you want to break down just how you're pulling, take a look at something like this, or take a look at this application I'm using. It's called Coach's Eye. Usually it allows you to go slow-mo and go inch by inch over your lifts, which I haven't done in a long time, but I love doing it. From here, the last thing I'll say is that set the lats in this position and use the shoulders to help transition the hips back underneath the bar so that we're not rowing that bar up into the hip. This stops momentum. It's incredibly inefficient, but it's something that can easily be corrected over time if we start practicing it consistently. Okay, that's all I have for you guys today. It was a little long-winded, but I'm really happy that you guys decided to sit through the whole thing. I love this stuff, and this is like this is like what I love to do in my free time. So thank you for checking it out. If you guys would like to see any more videos like this, please give me a holler, let me know, and talk to me. You can contact me in the email at jake@valhalla-barbell.com, or you can even direct message me on Instagram at Jake Sterny or at Coach Jake _. Thank you guys, and I hope you guys learned something today.